Everyone wants to live an inspired life, yet so many people search for happiness following the footsteps of peers and taking advice from people who have different values and outcomes to which they're searching. There are people born into wealth, graduated from the best universities in the world, and there are people who have none of that and yet are living extraordinary lives full of fulfillment and reward. The purpose of this podcast is to share insights and strategies that allow you to question the status quo and think freely, so you can design your life and be who you want to be. We get one life. Time is our most valuable asset. I believe that when we're free and able to focus on meaningful work, we become better human beings. This is Always Free, and I'm your host, Jason Greystone.
Welcome to the leading podcast for financial empowerment and wealth creation. Subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. You can connect with Jason on social media and subscribe to the Jason Greystone YouTube channel for weekly videos. Don't forget to also subscribe to the weekly newsletter to receive frequent educational content and action steps to help you design your life so you can be who you want to be. For news on all future events and updates, go to jasongreystone.com.
All right, welcome back to the podcast, guys. Hope you've had a good week. This is episode 21, and last week had phenomenal feedback on the investing episode. Tried to structure that the best way I possibly could. There was a lot to cram in, as I said in the episode. I could talk about that stuff for a week. I actually run a program for my clients on the ins and outs of how to do that. So it was difficult to cram it into half hour, but hopefully, considering the feedback I got, it seems you got value from that, and I kind of hit all the spots that needed to hit. We'll be talking a bit more in depth into more on that in future episodes, but up until this point, I've kind of been going through the subjects and the categories and the steps in order, and there's a reason for that, because there is a specific order. There's a way that you need to do this. And if you don't do it in the order that I've been going through in this podcast series, you're probably quite unlikely to succeed in wealth building, because, as I mentioned before, you need to kind of have your money game together. You need to build a foundation. You need to start saving, have your money game together, your expenses, control your expenses. You need to start saving. And then you need to save before you invest. And then, ideally, you need to invest before you speculate, because if you start speculating with the only money you've got, and you haven't got the right mindset, and you can't afford to lose money, speculating is gonna absolutely crucify you. You're not in the right frame of mind to start gambling your money or doing high risk investments, because you just won't last. You won't have the right mindset. So that's why you guys that read the newsletter, it always starts with mindset. There's a mindset section first, then accumulation, then acceleration, and then the action steps, and it's in that order for a reason. So the thing is, if you are doing this and you're going along the action steps from this podcast, that's great. That's really, really great. And if you're not, then it's probably just not as high on your values than you thought. So there's people who think that they have a high value on wealth building, but they just don't. And the truth is, what you spend your money on is what you value most. So if you've got a high value on wealth building, you'll be doing this stuff. If you haven't, you'll be in consumerism. You'll be consuming things, and you won't be saving and investing, and investing in yourself and building businesses and learning to trade and all that kind of stuff. You just won't do it. You think you want to do it because other people might have those results, but it isn't really high up your value list. So hopefully you enjoyed that anyway. It's as I say, it's going about it in the right order, which is key. Got lots of questions this week for lots of different ideas. One of the juiciest ones was, I've spoke about keeping people happy before and trying to keep people happy and not expecting everyone to be supportive and all that kind of stuff. But this one was specifically about kind of along the lines of, what do you do if your partner is kind of unsupportive or annoyed that you're building a business or working on self-development, or maybe you're really hammering something at the moment, and what if your partner starts to be a bit funny, maybe gets a bit jealous, maybe feels like you're putting them last, and is kind of unsupportive or negative towards your journey? What do you do? And it might be partner, it might be friends, but this one was particularly partner. And that was the question. So first of all, if they think that you're putting them last, that's obviously rubbish, because there's plenty of people you could be with, right? There's plenty of other people, plenty of other fish in the sea, right? But you've chose to be with that person. So obviously they're not last. And just saying that, that they feel like they come last over everything else is just ridiculous. But if they want to be number one all the time, there's something there. There's something wrong with that, because imagine if you just put someone first all the time and devoted all your time. Actually, imagine it the other way around. Imagine if someone was putting you first all the time, right? It'd be good for maybe a week, right? And then it'd be a bit annoying. It'd be a bit creepy. It'd be like, go and do something else. Go and do something else. If they were like doting around you and kind of doing everything for you and putting you first and spending all their time gazing at you. I mean, it's just not. It's not realistic. You wouldn't want that, or I certainly wouldn't want that. When me and my wife, we throw parties, we go to parties, go socialise. When we do that, we might see each other once or twice in the evening, and we'll spend the rest of the time talking to other people, and that's good. I wouldn't want to imagine if we went out socialising and she's just like, oh, going to get your drink, coming back, getting giving you the drink, sitting there like waiting on your every word. That'd be creepy. Like, so if someone feels like that they should be put first all the time, that's a very, very unrealistic expectation. And there's probably a deeper set issue there, maybe. But again, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, people only do what's on their highest values. So if they want to spend time doing something else, that's because it's higher on their value list than yours. So you might want to do something, if you're creating a business right now, that's really high on your value list. You've really got to get that thing off the ground. You're excited to get up in the morning and work on it. Maybe you're writing a book. Maybe you're building a business. Maybe you're learning a new skill. Maybe you're learning to trade. Maybe you're excited about all this information, this new information, this higher education that you're taking in. Maybe that's the thing. It's really high on your values, and maybe that isn't high on their values. So they're trying to do what's high on their values, and their thing might be watching films, socializing, maybe going, relationships, family, and all that kind of stuff. So the thing is, if being with you and kind of spending time with you and watching TV and all that kind of stuff is higher on their value list, and them to you is maybe 2 or 3 or 4 on your value list at the moment, because you've prioritized the business, getting the business off the ground. It doesn't matter if they're 2, 3 or 4, they're going to feel like they're last. They're going to feel much lower than that, because you're basically knocking back their values. So they'll feel like they're coming last. Now, it is very, very common for relationships are usually the same setup, where you'll have one partner who's kind of empowered in 2 or 3 areas of life, and then the other partner is empowered in another 2 or 3 areas, and usually they're the complete opposite. So one might be really, really strong and empowered in business and finance, and then the other one might be empowered in social and relationships and the family. They love the family and they love socializing and that kind of stuff. So the key, if that's the case, the key might just be to set up, have a think about what your activities are and what's going on, and set it up so you both get what you want. So, for instance, you could, if you've got, if you want to self-develop, maybe you like attending networking events, right? Maybe you like attending seminars or boot camps. Well, you could figure out where there's a networking event, and if your partner likes to socialize and you like to develop on the business, well, guess what? You could put it to her that, or him that, I've got this networking event coming up. There's a lot of socializing going on. We could take friends along to this, get other people on board, and then you both get what you want. And that can really, really help the other person empower the areas that they're a little bit weaker on as well, because by coming to the networking event, they're also going to work on their networking and their, business skills. They're going to learn stuff from people at a networking event. But there is always an element of doubt and uncertainty when one partner is growing in one area of life that the other partner kind of perceives to be better than them in, quote unquote, because from an evolutional standpoint, we're literally scared that we will be inferior to other humans. And when you're doing that, when one partner's particularly going through a growth phase and really, really hammering it, times can get rocky. You go through some tough times, and there's this period where it's a real test on the relationship. And usually if you get through those growth phases, you've usually got a keeper. I've changed since I met my wife. I'm a different person in many ways, and I've changed multiple times. I've kind of, you imagine the caterpillar that kind of cocoons and then a butterfly emerges. I've kind of cocooned several times as I've increased my knowledge and kind of scaled up my circle of influence and become, in my opinion, a better human being. But here's the key. The key is to empower yourself in all areas of life, and then everything else sorts itself out. So when you empower yourself to the degree that you no longer care about someone being better than you, you get your stuff together, and you're 100%, you're happy with where you're going and what you're doing, and you've got your money game together, you've got your relationship together, and you've built the habits to kind of maintain strong relationships, and you've built the habits to maintain your money game, and you've built the habits to maintain your fitness game, and you build all those little habits and you empower yourself in all areas of life, everything else just sorts itself out. You really don't care anymore about someone being better than you. And you have the best relationship at that point. But the key is to find out what you love most, what area you're strong in, and put yourself first. Put yourself first. Be selfish first. Empower yourself first and get what you want. Because if you don't get you right, you'll end up with this kind of codependency, which is a sloppy relationship. And you might say, hey, we're a real strong team, so she or he does that and I do this, but there's always going to be a level of disempowerment when there's that dependency, when you're reliant upon someone. There's nothing better you can do than to empower yourself and help your partner empower themselves. I'm literally helping my wife write a book at the moment. So, that kind of thing. She came to me, said I could never write a book. Well, that's what everyone says when they can't write a book. Okay, help your partner empower themselves, get what they want whilst you get what you want. There's nothing wrong with putting yourself first, because when you put yourself first and you sort your own life out, everything else falls in place. Now, if it's not your partner, it might be your friend, or it might be your partner, but it might be your friend, and you might have other people who just don't get the same level as knowledge. They're not on the same knowledge level as you, and you've been reading books and you've been learning and you've been really spending all your time going all in, and what they'll do is they'll start to say, oh, you're crazy, you're mad, you want to be careful, it's risky, blah, 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 blah. But the thing is, when your knowledge exceeds your friend's knowledge in an area of life, there's a lag time between the knowledge that you've got and the results that's going to come of that knowledge. So there's a lag time. You don't just read something and then you've got the result. So what you do is you build up the knowledge and then the results come later. So what that means is there comes this point where your knowledge is so much greater than maybe the people around you, maybe your friends, maybe your partner. But because the results are on a lag, because the results aren't there yet, they just think you're talking crap. And they put you down. Because you start talking about stuff, and because you haven't got the proven results, they'll put you down. And, if they're your partner, they might even get fearful, or they might say, oh, you're on drugs or something. They think that you're going all weird and woo-woo, and they say it won't work and all that kind of stuff. So the worst thing you can do in that situation is try to kind of dictate to them what you know, because they'll just see it as bull. Because they can't see your results. You're telling them what they should do, and this is really happened, and this is where it gets difficult to talk to people. It becomes difficult to talk to people, and if you do start telling people, they just don't want to know because they can't see the results. The results come later. I remember there was a time when I used to go to weddings and parties and all that kind of stuff, and no one really took their time to talk to me. No one really cared. People didn't want to talk to me, chit chat, all that kind of stuff. Even though, I was working on my knowledge, hammering it. I was going home, working on my knowledge, building up my knowledge, and all of a sudden, a few years later, when my lagged results caught up with my knowledge, they saw the results. All of a sudden, they wanted to know. That the party's changed, right? We'd walk into the party, people would, you're so-and-so. Oh, what is it you do? How did you do? I'd really love to know more about what you do. And now people pay for my knowledge now. People pay for my knowledge. So the best thing to do in that instance is just keep silent. I know it's hard, but let your results do the talking. Bite your tongue and get to where you want to go, and let the results do the talking when you get the results. So hopefully that answered the question. It's kind of a bit of an interim podcast before we go on to the next step. But it is really important because up to this point, you've kind of been changing. You've been changing your behavior. You've been changing your mindset. You've been changing your outlook towards money. You've been probably hearing the ideas I've been talking about and telling them to family members and, the elders, and you've had some funny looks, and you 100% believe what I'm telling you, but you can't portray it to them. And this is what I'm saying. When you get the knowledge and you tell people, they will think you're mad because you haven't got the results. Okay, so this is where it gets difficult. And if it's your partner, this is where it's going to be a struggle, and they're going to say, oh, you've changed, you're doing all this mad stuff. But it's just because they haven't quite seen the results yet. And, the best thing you can do is to position yourself in a way where they can get what they want and you can get what you want, and help to empower them as well as you empower yourself, but not by dictating to them what they should and shouldn't do. Just, subtly position what you want and ask yourself, how can I give them what they want as well whilst doing this and getting what I want? So hopefully you found that useful. Let me know what you think about this podcast, because it's a bit more mindset, this one. But I would love to hear your feedback, and please, if you haven't already, please give this a rating, 5 stars, and leave it a review. Leave it a little review. Subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and leave a little review for me on iTunes, and that will be much appreciated. So until next week, have a great rest of your day and a brilliant weekend, and I'll see you then.
Subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. For news on all future events and updates, go to jasongreystone.com.